Hi, it's Simon from Composing Academy, and today I'm going to be exploring Nucleus Lite by Audio Imperia, an orchestral sample library costing $99. Nucleus Lite is a cut-down version of the main Nucleus library, and with an attractive price, can be an ideal first sample library for beginners just starting out with building their collection of sample libraries. So what do we get from a $99 sample library? So looking here, we can see that this is essentially an ensemble-based library, meaning the sounds are split into whole orchestral sections. So we have strings, woodwinds and brass sections, along with some percussion instruments such as timpani, glockenspiel, grand cassa and snare drum. As well as the core orchestral sections, there's also a choir and some sound design elements in the form of pads. For each of the main ensembles, we get both long and short notes, giving you plenty of options and choices when composing. So I've got a piece of mine which I've mocked up using just the sounds from Nucleus Lite. Let's take a quick listen to see what the library can do, and then I'll take a dive into the library, going through each of the ensembles individually, and showing you how you can get the best from the library. Okay, so here we are in the Contact 6 player, which Nucleus uses. When you first open the instrument list, you're presented with four options: multi-patches, single patches, performance patches, and sound design. Multi-patches feature both long and short articulations in one handy patch. You can switch between each playing technique by triggering a key switch down here at the very bottom of the keyboard. Single patches contain each articulation as a separate sound, something which I prefer as I can have each articulation on its own track here in Cubase. For each instrument in the library, we also get two different microphone mixes, classic and modern, which can help to give you some degree in the flexibility of the sound. The classic mix features the raw and unprocessed sound of the original recordings, while the modern mix adds subtle processing for a more upfront sound. Okay, so let's have a listen to the strings, starting with the longs. As you can hear, these strings have a very lush and warm sound, especially when played with thick chords. You can see down here that I have two MIDI CCs or controller lanes going at the same time. The top lane here is CC1 or the mod wheel, and this crossfades between the various dynamic layers. If I move my mod wheel fader down, you'll then hear a quiet but also delicate sound. I raise the fader up, now you can hear not only a louder sound, but something that has a bit more bite to it. The expression control on the lower lane is then basically an additional volume control, giving an extra level of detail to help add to the human feel of the samples. Next, let's have a listen to the short strings. As you can see, I don't use the short strings a huge amount in this track, but one very important control we have here is the sample start dial found in the Advanced tab. This is available for all of the short articulations across the various ensembles, and lets you adjust how much at the beginning of the sample you hear. To make the sample sound the most realistic, you'll want to make sure that this dial is set to somewhere between minus 125 milliseconds and 250 milliseconds. This will give you most of the realistic natural attack of the instrument, but at the cost of adding an amount of delay or latency when you're playing the notes on a keyboard. If you're playing the notes in, it may be worth taking this setting all the way up to 0 initially, which will cut off the natural attack of the instrument, but make it much more playable. Then when you finish playing, take the dial back to minus 250. Then in your sequencer, you should have a track delay setting like here in Cubase. If you make sure the setting in your track delay matches the same amount set in your Nucleus instrument, you'll hear the most realistic attacks of the samples, all playing in time with your sequence's grid. Okay, so let's move on to the woodwinds. Like the strings, we have both long and short articulations, split across a combination of 2 flutes, 2 oboes, 2 clarinets, and 2 bassoons. Let's take a listen to this passage here at bar 31, and you'll get an idea of how the short staccatissimo patch sounds. Let's take a listen to the long sounds from the woodwinds, which I use to reinforce the melody here from bars 27 to 31. As you can hear, they're quite lyrical, and with the various instruments again mapped across the keyboard, this patch is incredibly versatile. I've also got this section over here, which is simulating a woodwind scale run. Okay, so let's take a listen to the brass. So what we're hearing in this patch is a combination of 6 French horns, 3 trumpets, 4 trombones and 2 tubas mapped across the keyboard. Like with the long strings, I've made sure to include 2 lanes of controller data to help give as much realism as possible. This helps to really make use of the dynamic layers, which you can hear very clearly changes from the soft delicate sound up to the aggressive sound we get with the mod wheel turned up here at bar 17. As I don't use the brass staccatissimo patch in this piece, let's have a quick play of this on the keyboard, so you can hear how the samples sound. You can hear there's plenty of bite with the trombones there in the low end. Let's just quickly talk about the reverb option with the library. If I turn the reverb off, you can hear that these samples were recorded in quite a dry sounding room. Adding contact reverb will add more space to the samples though. So if I turn the reverb dial up to 100%, the samples sound like they're in a much larger room, such as a hall. If you're using this library in combination with other sample libraries, you can turn off the reverb here in Contact and have multiple libraries sit together well in a mix by using a single reverb from, say, a dedicated plugin. Next, let's have a quick look at the percussion options which come with the library. You can see that the folders are split into tonal and atonal percussion. In the tonal percussion folder, we have timpani and glockenspiel. The timpani features single hits, which sound like this. I've also made lots of use of the glockenspiel in this piece to help add to the magical and fantasy feel. Let's take a listen in isolation. and now in context with the rest of the piece. In the atonal folder, we have options for grand casses, which are bass drums, snare drums, piatti, which are crash cymbals, and a tam-tam. I've made use of the percussion mostly towards the end of the piece here with the timpani. To beef up the grand cassa, I've rendered the audio and then pitch shifted it down, along with increasing the volume, a trick I learned from Guy Mitchellmore. I've done the same with the tam-tam as well, again to beef up the sound to add more presence. As I don't use the snare drums in the piece, let's just take a quick listen to these in isolation. So let's look at the choir next. So again, the library contains both long and short articulations with both male and female singers mapped across the keyboard. I've made extensive use of this in the piece, again helping to achieve the fantasy feel of the track. Let's take a listen to some of the longs in isolation. Listen to how real and detailed that sounds. I think this choir patch is one of the best instruments in the library and was almost worth the $99 alone for this patch. For the short staccato sound, it features 4 different syllables per note, which cycle through in what we call round robins. This instantly helps to add an extra layer of realism, and if we take a listen to the section where I have these play, I think they sound pretty realistic. Finally, we come to the sound design element of the library. Given the style of the piece I wrote, I didn't feel that a modern contemporary synth element such as these pads would necessarily work for this particular track. So let's just quickly go through some of the pads we get in isolation here. So we get a total of 10 pad sounds, all of which are processed and all evolve and morph over time. These sound fantastic and will instantly add a sense of atmosphere, especially if you're writing an edgy or suspenseful piece. And if you grab this bar as well, you can change the start time so you can adjust to your liking. You also get this effects tab up here, which enables you to further process the sound like this rotator effect, which throws the sound around between the left and right speakers in a cool effect. So overall, in answer to my question from the title of the video, I think that yes, Nucleus Lite is the perfect sample library for beginning composers looking to buy their first orchestral sample library. There are of course lots of free libraries out there, such as the BBC Symphony Discover and the Lab series, both by Spitfire Audio. I think Nucleus Lite would complement these libraries well, giving you even more options and helping to add to your arsenal of composing tools. The standout patches for me are the strings, both longs and shorts, along with the choir, and these both give you a great set of bread and butter sounds which you can use over and over again. Another benefit of the library is that it has a small resource footprint, taking up around 5 GB of space, meaning you don't have to have a really powerful computer to run the sounds. Let me know what you think of the library in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe to the channel for more composing tutorials, tips and tricks.